Hey, this is Gabe Abelson, and you're watching the Letterman Podcast.
Welcome once again to the Letterman Podcast. My name is Mike Chisholm. All right, we got another page on the show here. A few weeks ago, we had Eric Schmidt on, and today we have another page who served around the time, not with Eric, but just after, Greg Burmeister. Greg and I, we get along very, very, very well, just like with Eric. He's actually Eric's co-host for the podcast Talking Schmidt, and I've listened to a bunch of those episodes, obviously since Eric's been on, and it's a great show. Listening to these guys just go back and forth is awesome. Greg is like myself, like Eric, and a few of the other guests that we've had on, just loves music. And so we go down that path a little bit and talk about his time as being a page for Letterman, how he got the gig, and then all of the things around that, stories from when he had the gig, including his first day when my granddaughter, when she has to go to the bathroom really bad, she says, "I'm busting." His first day on the job, Ryan Reynolds comes running down the stairs, busting, looking for the bathroom. That was his first day on the job. And realizing that was going to be one of the most special years of his life, being a page at Late Show with David Letterman. And after that, stayed in television for a while, worked for a few productions, notably one of them being The Celebrity Apprentice, which is pretty interesting talking to him about that. Just a lot of fun I love talking to the pages because, they've got the everyman perspective, but also from the inside. And I love some of the stories that these pages have, and really, really cool getting to know and hearing the stories from Greg Burmeister. I hope you enjoy it. Greg, you know what? I am so excited that Eric connected us. A few weeks ago, Eric came on the show, and then he talked about the podcast that he's on, Talking Schmidt, and I feel like I've gotten to know you a little bit in listening to those episodes, and then Eric and I going back and forth saying, "Oh yeah, Greg would love to be on the show too." Welcome to the Letterman Podcast, my friend.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm excited. When Eric first told me he was doing this, I was excited for him, but also I was like, yeah, I mean, I would love to do that too. Let's talk. I always love talking all things Letterman.
Oh man, you know what? And I want to get you all. It's like you're almost like little Pokemon to me now. I want to get everybody who worked for the production in some fashion or another at some point. I also love talking Letterman. Hence the name of the show, and just it's so much fun. It's the gift that keeps on giving. And even like today, a new Letterman video drops of the Barbara Gaines show, the stuff they're doing on YouTube. It's so great to see that they're still doing stuff. There's an announcement that was made that Paul and the band are going to be playing at the Tonight Show for all of the next week, as the Roots are going to be doing stuff for the SNL 50 thing, and so it's just the gift that keeps on giving. All these years later, you're still a Letterman fan.
Yeah, he was always my favorite, and that's so cool about Paul and the band. I didn't even know that.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, that's great.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's amazing. But yeah, I like even when I was a kid, I would watch Letterman every night. Like Letterman and Conan were my two favorite shows.
Yep.
And so, yeah, to be able to work on it back in like 2011, 2012 was just incredible. And I still love it. I still watch like old YouTube clips and just when I'm bored, and it's the best.
Absolutely. Don Giller's channel is phenomenal, and the Letterman channel, of course, is rapidly building its library as well. So great to be it's such a good time to still be a Letterman fan and watch what they're doing these days. You alluded to growing up being a fan. Many folks who ended up going to work at the production at some form or another where did you grow up?
So I grew up in a small town in southeastern Minnesota. It's Austin, Minnesota. And
okay, the other Austin.
Whenever I tell people that, I have to specify Austin, Minnesota, because I've made the mistake of just saying Austin, and that's people either get Texas or Boston. But, yeah. So Austin, Minnesota, and then when I turned 18, I moved up to Minneapolis and lived there for 9 years before moving to New York.
Is this that stereotypical, grew up in the small town and then went to the big Minneapolis must have been the big city, it sounds like, and lots of adventures and things like that, and then to New York from there. Is that kind of the flavor of that?
Exactly. Yep, exactly. Austin was just too small for me, so I went to Minneapolis thinking that was the big city.
Yep.
And I played a lot of rock and roll shows in Minneapolis, and then Yeah, after being there for 9 years, it was no longer big enough. So I bought a one-way flight to New York.
And for Talking Schmidt, I love the intros to Talking Schmidt because it's a little guitar lick from something. It's either the Jurassic Park theme or other little a little 2 or 3 second blurb of something. I love that. So you're still obviously playing. What are some of the bands that influenced you wanting to be a musician?
Oh man, yeah, there's so many. I like when I was in high school, I started playing guitar when I was 15.
Yeah,
I wish I would have started earlier, but
yeah,
I was big into hair metal.
yep.
Yeah, a lot of
So
Motley
Poison,
Crue.
Cinderella, that
Yeah,
kind of
boys,
stuff.
yeah, oh, totally, yeah. And yeah, huge Motley Crue fan. I've got their book, The Dirt.
Yep,
Uh, and yeah, so I loved hair metal. Also all the classics like Stones, Zeppelin.
yeah.
Uh, but yeah, and then the first like real band I played in was in Minneapolis. It was called Cue the Doves.
Cue the
Like
Doves.
yeah, CUE, like cue
Yeah.
'em.
Oh
What?
yeah, here they come. Yep.
Yeah, there they are. Yeah, we were kind of like we were into the screamo scene, kind of.
Yep.
Like mixture of singing and screaming. Like it was pretty heavy, but still melodic.
Yeah.
Lot of effects on the guitars, a lot of delay, and yeah, that was so much fun. We did like a big East Coast tour where we played, I think it was 14 different cities in 15 days.
Yep.
Just, classic. Early 20s kids sleeping in the back of the van,
Yep.
just partying every night. And yeah, that was so much fun. And we got to play with some pretty big bands in that scene.
Yeah.
Like yeah, we did the Taste of Chaos show in Milwaukee back in 2007, which was I don't know if you listen to much of that kind of music,
I
but like
do.
oh, cool. Yeah, like Seosin,
Yep.
Senses Fail, 30 Seconds to Mars,
Of
Jared Leto
course.
band.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like we opened for them and played with Circus Survive and a bunch of those kinds of bands. So that was a fun time.
In a way, a little bit ahead of your time. Like you think about some of these festivals and things that exist now, that you could that would be a venue for you to play on throughout the summer. There's all sorts of festivals that have that kind of stuff now, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was in 2019. I cruised down to Atlantic City and went to the 25th anniversary of Warp Tour.
Yep.
I saw all the, Taking Back Sunday, like Blink 182 headlined. And
Yep.
yeah, I still love those shows.
Absolutely. Oh, that's very, very cool. Okay, so is the band what took you to New York? Did you think, okay, we've established here and now we're moving to New York, or was it the job, or how did that happen?
It was actually, so the band was kind of the catalyst, but
Yeah.
not, but I was the only one. Like our band had broken up and I started managing some bands, just, booking shows because I knew all the venue owners in
Yeah.
Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And then one of my favorite local bands, they were called Small Towns Burn a Little Slower. Very emo. And they
It's a
shared
great name.
yeah, they shared a rehearsal space with Motion City Soundtrack,
Hmm.
who was kind of the bigger local band.
Yeah.
But those guys had moved to New York like about a year or two before I did,
Yeah.
and they started this psychedelic rock band called Galaxy Queens. And they needed a
Fantastic.
yeah, yeah, I love that name. They needed a bassist, and even though yeah, I never really played much bass.
Hmm.
It's fairly easy to figure out rock and roll bass if you're good at the guitar.
Yep.
So yeah, I was just kind of getting bored in Minnesota, and I packed up a suitcase and grabbed my bass guitar and took a one-way flight to New York.
Wow. And how old were you at this point?
I was 27. This
Okay, so
was
27. So you said live some life. You had toured around with the bands and things like that. So it's not like you weren't used to some of these things, this uncertainty of life that lifestyle can bring. Um, was New York what you thought it was, or did it take your expectations and then stretch them a little bit?
Yeah, it was honestly about what I expected.
Yeah.
I knew it was good. I knew it was the big city. It was like Minneapolis on steroids,
Yep.
and I had visited a few times, so I kind of knew what to expect. But yeah, it was wild. Like I moved out here with no money, no job lined up, didn't even have a place to stay. Like I
Yeah.
crashed on my drummer's couch until I found a tiny rat-infested apartment in Bed-Stuy.
Like it's like Minneapolis on steroids. I think a lot of folks feel that way with the big city that they grow up near. Mine's Vancouver. I would go to Vancouver all the time for concerts and things like that. Seattle as well, but Vancouver, more so. And the first time I went to New York, I was just, and I mean, New York's always had that pull. I don't know if it had it for you or not. It was like a magnet. Growing up, I just always dreamt of going out there and hanging out and being a part of, just being a part of it. You watch Saturday Night Live and you just, I think that's one thing that show nailed really, really well. The idea of the party that's happening on Saturday
Uh,
night, and of course, Letterman did the same thing, and it would pull me towards it. And I got there the very first time I got there, 03, I think it was the first time I went to New York, and I said the exact same phrase. This is like Vancouver except on steroids, and I think a lot of people
yeah.
feel the same way. Yes, we have a music scene. Yes, we have some of this cool things or whatever, but New York has it, and then has it, and then has it, and has it again, and it's every bit in when I would see it, and I don't know if it's still like this or not, but it was every bit the artist paradise I would hope it would be. And it's just such a cool
Absolutely.
spot. You're still there. You still feel it.
Yep. I've been here almost 14 years now, and yeah,
Yeah.
I still love it just as much as the day I moved, if not more. But yeah, it's so cool, especially playing in just a small local band. You start playing at these little clubs and venues that hold maybe 50 people, but
Yeah.
then you hear the history of it. It's like, oh, this is where the Ramones you know, played back in, whatever,
Yep.
80s. And like, yeah, one time, like Lady Gaga used to play this piano in front of 10 people. And
Yep.
like, yeah, so much just cool history as opposed to, playing small bars in Minnesota.
Yeah, that have been around for a decade or whatever. The history. Like I went and saw Will Lee and Paul and a few other people play at the Bitter End
Oh,
a
yeah.
couple
Yep.
years ago, and it's like you feel these rooms have energy. There's an energy that has stayed and permeated the wall space, and it feels like there's just an energy in there that is almost indescribable. I'm having a hard time articulating it right now, but it sure is wonderful when the alchemy of music just starts to mix with that energy and being in the audience. It's truly a unique experience, I find.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, just knowing how many legends have been in those small rooms is amazing.
Absolutely. So, okay, so you're playing in these bands, you're trying to get established in New York. At what point does Letterman come into it?
So it's pretty wild. As I mentioned, I had no job lined up, uh, and I always wanted to work in TV
Yeah.
because back in Minnesota, I used to make weird videos with my friends, yeah, like Tim Heidecker style videos that a lot of people just didn't understand because they really didn't make any sense.
Yep.
They were just very weird. But I always wanted to have like a real TV job. And so that was kind of in the back of my head when I moved to New York, even though music was the primary reason I came.
Yeah.
But my friend Mike Leach, who I met through my bandmates,
Yeah.
was at one of our practices like a few weeks after I moved to New York, and I was telling him that my goal is to find a job in TV, and at this point I didn't care what it was. I just wanted any TV job, and
Yep. Foot in the
start meeting.
door.
Yep, exactly. And Mike told me he was like, "Yeah, I work at the Late Show with David Letterman." And they're always looking for pages. So he's like, send me your resume and I'll pass it along to like the page boss. And he
That would have been
did.
Janice probably, right?
It was, I think he sent it to Jennifer.
Oh, did yes. Okay, in audience
Yep. So who
coordination.
is our direct
Yeah.
boss? But
Yeah.
then, yep. But then eventually, I'm sure she had to get it to Janice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
yep. And so, yeah, it was great. Within a few days, I got an email and they asked me to come in and do an interview. And it worked out. All of a sudden, I was new to New York and just working at Letterman.
And how long? What's the time frame? New to New
It
York,
was
then working for
Yeah,
Letterman.
it's probably, I'd say a month, maybe a little more, 5 weeks.
It's And there are some who tried and tried and tried and tried and tried and tried, and you just kind of all right, and just kind of glided right into that spot.
Yeah, I was
That's
just it was hilarious. I was just at batting practice
yeah.
and I was like, "Hey, Mike, give me a job at Letterman." He was like, "Okay."
Oh man, that
Done.
is so great. One of the things that has come up on this show many times, and this is for folks who were, an intern or a page, all the way up to people who were like, there for decades, is the idea that you could be a fan of the show, but you kind of had to be a little bit more subdued. But if there's anybody who actually could be a fan of the show and they could let their flag fly, would be the folks in audience coordination, because you have to have that high energy. It's kind of that up with people kind of an energy. When you got to the Ed Sullivan Theater, like, was there that excitement that lived in you? Like, were you like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening kind of a thing? Or is this, okay, this will get me into TV? Like, did you feel some of that energy?
Yeah, absolutely. It was
Yeah.
crazy. I remember on my first day, actually before my first day, they
Yeah.
gave me a tour of the whole theater,
Yeah.
like downstairs, they even showed me backstage, and I just kept having flashbacks of watching the show as a kid, and like I couldn't believe I was actually there. And I've never been one to get starstruck or, have my
Yep.
mind blown very easily, but yeah, just like being in there when it was dark
Yep.
and there was nobody else around, like it was wild.
Well, it's funny. You talk about the energy of these venues, and the Ed Sullivan Theater certainly has it. I remember it the first time I saw Letterman. I remember it, the last time that I saw Letterman. But then also, like, I've been there to see Colbert, and for Rupert's retirement, they did it in the lobby. Like, that place has that same echoes of energy that we're talking about. You go in there and you feel something. It's an intangible thing, and,
Yeah.
and talking to folks like Eric and whatnot, it doesn't go away. It continually feels that way. It feels like that's an affirmative for you too.
Yeah, absolutely. Even these days, I walk by, the Ed Sullivan Theater all the time, and I'll just look over and be like, "Oh man, what a legendary place."
Oh, I love hearing that. And a lot of us who live vicariously through these stories love that as well. You were present. It meant something to you, and it still does to this day. Very, very cool. So you did your interview. Was that just like a standard job interview, no problem, or were there oddities like right there going, oh, okay, yeah, this isn't just a normal job.
Yeah, it was. The interview itself was really quick, and I'm pretty sure it was because I was friends with Mike,
Yep.
and Jen really liked Mike, and she was just like, "Yeah, you're good. I just have to ask you a few questions, as a formality." And yeah, she was very nice, and yeah, I think they just liked my natural positivity, and they were like, "Yeah, this guy's gonna be good for hyping up the audience and getting everyone ready for the show." And yeah, it was pretty smooth.
Oh, that's excellent. So, what was your first job as you got in there? Because the Letterman page is a little bit different than a CBS page. Actually, it's a lot different than a CBS page. It's very removed from everything, and different stations. I guess it's safe to say they had different stations
Yeah,
that you would do.
definitely.
Do you remember what your first station was that you did?
Yeah, so my very first day, they stuck me on the platform. I don't know if
Uh-huh.
you've the classic platform. It's at the bottom of the stairs, and basically your entire job is to stand there. And when audience members walk down the stairs looking for the bathroom, you point down the hallway and say, "Bathrooms that way."
Yep.
And
Training
you
wheels. Okay.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And you just wanted to make sure they didn't go down the other hallway, which went to the green rooms and yeah, where the talent was. So
Yeah.
you just your entire job was to stand there for a few hours and make sure people only went to the bathroom and then got back up to the theater. But that day, my very first day, I saw this guy frantically scurrying down the stairs, and I wasn't really paying attention. I think I was just on my phone because there's not a whole lot to do down on the platform.
Yep.
And like out of the corner of my eye, I saw this guy just running down the stairs. He's like, "Hey man, do you know where the bathroom is?" And I looked up and it was Ryan Reynolds.
What?
Yeah, I was like Van Wilder.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, there you go. Because we're in 2011, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
2011. Aren't you the guy from Two Guys, a Girl, in a Pizza Place? Aren't you? Aren't
Yeah,
you?
yeah,
Van Wilder. That's a better pull. Uh, why was he up there?
yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I had no like I didn't even realize this at the time, but it was it was extra weird because the celebrities never came down those
Yeah,
main staircase. Like they would go in the side door backstage and just be back there the whole time. So
yeah.
I don't know what he was doing out there, but he really had to pee.
And stupid question. He was a guest on that night's show there, right? He wasn't
Yeah,
supporting somebody else. He was the okay. That is
yeah,
hilarious that that happened.
yeah.
First day.
First
Oh,
day, and so immediately, I just thought to myself, I already love this job. This is going to be amazing.
at that point, there are they already kind of indoctrinating you with the with all of the because there's a lot of stuff you got to keep in your head as you're
Yeah.
doing this. Did you get like it's not a workbook like a binder with the script and all that kind of stuff for the audience coordination? Do you get a binder with that stuff? And
Yeah, yeah. There is. You're right. There's a lot of information. There's the list of the do not book people, the
Mhm.
DNBs. The script for the speech that we had to give it was pretty lengthy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, so that took a while. I mean, you can tweak it to make it your own, but it's there's a lot of information you have to pump out to the audience within about 5 minutes or so. So it was. Yeah, it was honestly a bit overwhelming at first, but they were like, "You're fine. It always takes some time. You'll get the hang of it." But it was, yeah. Once you kind of got into the groove, it was so much fun.
I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but I feel like you're one of the people that I could put on the spot, and I haven't done it yet. Do you remember the speech? Like, is it still there? Like, do you? A lot of people dream about the show, and they have little fragments that they cannot get out of their head. Do you remember any part of the speech?
I really don't. I remember opening it with late show audience, how you doing? And I remember the cell phone part. We had to
Yep.
tell people to turn off their cell phones, and the line every single page said was silent or vibrate will not cut it.
Yep.
Turn off your phone,
Yep.
because we didn't even want the vibration noise,
Yep.
or we didn't want people looking at their phones if they felt a notification. So turn completely power it down. But yeah, other than that, I really don't remember a whole lot. Like we had to tell people not to make the woo sound because that
Yep.
was one of Dave's biggest pet peeves.
Yep.
He wanted people to clap and laugh,
Yep.
but no wooing. So we had to specifically tell the audience several times, like whatever you do, do not make the woo noise or you will be kicked out.
Yep. I'll tell you this: visiting the show, I visited it in 2015, a month before the run ended, and it was back in 0304. In that time, one thing that I do remember both times, I was on the gold list both times, and the coordinators were very specific about if you get called on the Q&A. What Dave likes to hear, what he doesn't like to like, kind of
Yeah.
good questions versus not good questions for Dave. That was always something that I thought was funny because I always like to think around corners. Whenever I watch the show, I watched the show. Don't get me wrong, but I was very, very, very excited to watch what the segment producers were doing and the different the workings of the show. I
Yeah,
loved that part.
the full production.
Absolutely. And because I think part of it was because they that show bred us, or at least a certain part of the audience, to look at everybody on the show as characters on the show. I think that that's probably part of the secret sauce as to why that line of thinking was there. But with you guys and gals talking about the Q&A part, that immediately I think to myself, oh, there must be some memorable questions or memories that have happened from that Q&A that have caused them to put that disclaimer
Yeah,
into the
true.
speech.
True. It's yeah, I know another reason they did is the last thing you want to do is make Dave mad right before a taping. It's like yeah, you do not want to piss off Dave.
Yeah.
Like then the entire staff is going to hear about it. So
Well, and that's, and that's everybody. That's, whether it's John Moran, the guy handing on the microphone, whether it's, whoever's doing warm up, whether it's Eddie or Alan. I guess it still would have been Eddie back when you were there, right? It still would have
Yep,
been
yep, it
Eddie.
was Eddie.
Yeah.
Yeah, he.
If it's, whoever it is, a camera that's out of place or whatever, the last thing you want to do is stick your head out or your foot out while somebody is running, 40 miles an hour, getting ready to burst through a wall, which is what Dave would do.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so you were there for 2011, 2012?
Yep, exactly.
Okay. Was Eric there when you were that's where you met, right?
So Eric was actually there before me.
Yeah.
I think it was the year before me, but we met each other through mutual pages because there were people that overlapped that, like when he left,
Yep.
some of the people that were just starting were still there when I started. So we would hang out outside of work, and that's how I met him.
That's fantastic. Like, I love that there's still this, the idea of, oh, that's the Page Bar over there because they got the cheap beers versus, going to McGee's and where it starts.
Exactly.
And then that brotherhood, sisterhood, that camaraderie still exists to this day. There's a whole bunch of you that I want to have on the show and talk about this because it's again endlessly fascinating to me. I don't know what's wrong with me, but okay, so a music guy, Eric and I certainly got into this when he was on. I mean, one of the highlights for you had to be how much music you got to see while you were there. Am I right? Like, is it that must have been one of the huge highlights for you?
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of my favorite parts about working there is just seeing all these huge bands, right up close from a few feet away. Like when I was in high school, Incubus was one of my favorite bands.
Hmm.
And I even in high school art class, I made a 10 by 10 foot scale drawing of their Science album cover. And like I was obsessed with Incubus, and I got to see them do a live on Letterman performance, just right up front, and it just blew my mind because I had never even seen them live. And
Oh,
so the first time I saw one of my favorite bands was at the Ed Sullivan Theater, like so close.
the live on Letterman again. There's a lot of vicariousness I feel with this whole thing, and I always have. Live on Letterman is right on one of the very very tippy top of that. Those performances. So cool because you're in the best environment for sound. It's again that historic value that we talk about, the juice that it's Letterman's stage, and just wishing that I could somehow be a part of that. Eric told me the list of bands that he saw in that venue, the Live on Letterman venue.
Yeah.
These special concerts. What an unbelievable thing to be able to see one of your favorite bands do that. That is fantastic.
Yeah, it's so cool. And like the best part is even after we stopped working there, the security guards loved us. So they would just get us in. There were, for the following year or two, if there was a band that I wanted to see, and I would just show up and, Vinny or Mikey or
Yeah.
someone would just pull us right in. Like my roommate at the time was a diehard Fish fan, like very big Fish head. And, he went and saw Fish every time they played Madison Square Garden. And I found out Fish was doing a live on Letterman, and he found out about it and told me, he's like, dude, is there any way you could get me into the Fish live on Letterman? I was like, yeah, definitely. Let's just go. We'll show up to the side door, which we did,
Yeah.
and like the sidewalk on 53rd Street by the stage door was just packed with, tie-dye t-shirts and all these Fish fans. And we were kind of like trying to get through the crowd and get up to the door, and Vinny poked his head out and saw me like in the back of this crowd of, all the fans were just waiting for the show to end,
Yep.
in hopes that they could see Trey or Mike like
Yep.
leaving the theater. But Vinny just started screaming at people to like he parted the Red Sea of fans and just pointed at me, and he was like, "Everybody let this guy through."
Oh my
And we just
God.
like walked it like right in the side door, and he got us in there. And I think it was the best day of my roommate's life, seeing
Oh,
Fish do a live on Letterman.
that is a fantastic story. I talked to, when Paul was on the show, I talked to him about Fish because Letterman has that kind of it's that kind of a cult following. and we brought up the idea, about Fish and how they have that same following after all this time. They just have these fans that are so committed.
Yeah, they will
That's
go
a
to every show. They're like the Deadheads who,
Yep.
yeah, they'll follow them on tour and go to every single stop. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's wild.
Oh, that is very cool that you saw Fish. Do you have a recollection of any other bands you got to see in that venue?
Yeah, I saw Queens of the Stone Age, which was incredible.
Absolutely.
Like, love Josh Homme.
Uh-huh.
That guy's a beast. I never realized how tall he was.
Physical presence.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm a huge Nine Inch Nails fan, and he and Trent Reznor are a pretty good fan. And Trent, not so much. Trent is a very imposing
Yeah,
musician, and when he's on stage, he's like a howling beast, but not a tall guy. And when he stands beside him, it's just very fun. Yeah, he's gigantic.
yeah, they're pretty different. But yeah, I'm also a Nine Inch Nails fan. I
Are
was
you?
actually, yeah, I just saw that they're playing in Brooklyn coming up. They just announced the tickets, so
I got
I'm
my tickets for the Vancouver show
oh,
already.
nice.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I've met Trent a couple of times, and I'm hoping I can get a chance to meet him one more time and do this last one. My favorite Nine Inch Nails story. I watched Nine Inch Nails do an entire show. Then David Bowie comes and walks on stage and does 3 songs with Nine Inch Nails. They leave, and Trent stays on stage, and Trent does a version of "Hurt" with David's band, and then David Bowie played an entire show. That was one of my favorite
That's
concert
yeah, that's
experiences.
amazing because
Yeah,
I've seen a YouTube video of Bowie singing "Hurt"
it
with
was that was
Nine
from
Inch
that
Nails.
tour. Yeah,
No
that was
way.
yeah.
Yeah, I've watched that video so many times.
Yeah, it's so good, and I mean, the audience is just, we don't know what to do, because he had just come off his self-destruct tour, and it looked like they were just going to take a break, and then David Bowie asked them to go on tour, and they're like, okay, let's do it, and they go back on tour again, and the audience that was there to watch it, we did not know what to make of it, but then Bowie would come out on stage. If the same tour, if you want to see a fantastic rendition of Bowie's song "Scary Monsters," look for that on YouTube. It's Nine Inch Nails playing Scary Monsters with Bowie singing it. That's basically the song that
Oh, nice.
ended Nine Inch Nails' part, and then Bowie's band came out, and then they did "Hurt." So anyway, yeah. So just
That's so cool. I'm so jealous you got to see that.
I have a vinyl bootleg of it. I'm a very very excited about that. I don't know if you knew this or not. This is one of those things I want to. I want to talk to Sheila Rogers very badly. She's in my top five because the music is such a big part of my Letterman experience.
Yeah,
There was
I
go ahead.
always wanted Sheila Rogers' job. That was like my dream job. I
Hmm.
was always trying to make small talk with her and just trying to like get on her good side
Yeah.
because
Yeah, oh, it's incredible. And her hair, by the way, best hair in show booking business anyway, for sure, if not all of show business. But I remember back in 90, it was right around Woodstock. So 93, 94, somewhere there. Dave had become fixated on Nine Inch Nails. I think it was after the Woodstock performance, and Dave kept saying, "Hey, we're gonna get the Nine Inch Nails on. We're gonna get Nine Inch Nails on the show," and they never got them. And I always wanted to talk to Sheila about that and ask how hard she tried to make that happen.
yeah, that
Um,
would be amazing.
Musical moments though, like where Dave gets excited with these bands, things like that. Any memories that you have from actual like you saw the live on Letterman stuff, but stuff Dave interacting with bands, anything like that you come to mind?
Yeah, I'm actually blanking on which band it was, but
Okay.
there was one taping that I was working at where the band, they played at the end of the show and Dave walked over, he always shakes their hand and says, "Good night, everybody." But he just looked at the band and he was like, "That was so good. You guys want to play it again?" They just played the same
It
song.
was the heavy. If it was the heavy, how you like me now, that might be that moment. But Eric was
Oh,
at that moment too, though, so it might not be. It might have been another one.
yeah, that could have been.
But when Dave, yeah, it was so fun when Dave would get tickled with a band or really really enjoy something that they were doing.
Yeah, and
Um,
you could see him on the side of the stage watching, and like, yeah, there were definitely times where his face would just be lit up, and he would, be talking to Bill Shaft or whoever he was standing next to, and like you could tell he was just loving it.
Absolutely. Um, what are some other memories? I'm certain that you would have two or three kind of go-to stories, and probably over the years, as time. It's almost 10 years since Late Show, changed from Dave to Steven. But I'm certain that if folks back home or whatever, you say, "Oh yeah, I worked for Letterman." You probably have two or three go-to stories that you would tell. I'm assuming this. This seems to be what most of the folks seem to have.
Yeah,
Are you included in that list?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
What are the ones
Uh,
you would tell?
yeah, one of my favorite ones was I got stationed up in the corner, like the front corner of the audience. So right before like as the audience was coming in,
Mhm.
my job was to just kind of clap while Paul and the band were playing and kind of get everyone in the groove. And then I would stand there for the whole taping, and right when it ended, I would just try to make force everyone out, be like, "Show's
Mhm.
over, gotta
Yep.
leave, gotta leave."
Yep.
And so one day, as everyone was leaving, this guy like started walking towards me, which you're not supposed to do. Everyone's supposed to go that way. And this guy had a hoodie on, and I was almost kind of terrified. Like there's just this man with a hood
Yeah.
up,
Yeah.
like covering his face, walking like directly at me towards the stage. And I was like, "Sir, you gotta go. Show's over." And he pulled up his hood, and it was Woody Harrelson. And
What?
I was like, yeah, I didn't even know what to say. I was just like, hello. And he was like, "Hey man, my friends just played in the band, and they don't know I'm here, but I was in town. I came to the taping. I was wondering if I could pop backstage and surprise them." And so I just called over one of the security guys,
Yep.
and I was like, "Hey, Woody Harrelson wants to say hi to the band." And they were like, "All right, cool, come with me."
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it was wild.
The security guys, like you brought up Mike and Vinny. We brought that up with Eric a few weeks ago too. They were part of my experience there. That's how I got behind the desk because of those two guys,
Oh, amazing.
and my picture behind the desk, and they were just awesome, awesome guys. Very stereotypical New Yorkers through and through, but
Yeah,
completely different from each other. They were just
yeah.
great, great, great guys. Any Bill DeLace, Mike, Vinny, any of that security crew, they were great. They were shown on camera many, many, many times. Any security stories? Did you have to subdue somebody from the audience? Anybody ever give you trouble while you were there?
Um, Nobody really gave me trouble, but it was always funny watching those guys kick people out. Like I saw, I saw someone on their phone, and I told Richie, he was pretty big, pretty tough guy,
Yep,
former cop.
they all were. Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah. And I was just like, "Hey, Richie, that guy's on his phone. You want me to go say something to him?" He's just like, "I got it." And he just walked over, like right in the guy's face, and just pointed at him and went like this. And like Richie's pretty terrifying.
Yeah.
And that guy was, you could tell he was like, "Oh, put it away." And he was just like, "Nope." And just like pulled him out and like kind of not very gently shoved him out the door. And just yeah, they did not put up with any cell phone usage or wooing.
No.
Uh, but yeah, I just I really enjoyed watching people get kicked out. It was a lot of fun.
People genuinely clueless, like, I'm sorry, not like, what are you doing? What are you? It's that entitled kind of a thing,
Yeah,
not really
exactly.
realizing that it was actually going to happen. They were going to get kicked out.
Yeah, like there are no second chances. Like if we see you on your phone, you're out. Like there's
Yeah. It's funny, especially in the lower. I don't know if it was if the balcony had different rules than down below, but like we've had David Kay on the show, and I mean, the the audience, it was taken so seriously. I cannot emphasize enough. If people who are listening or watching this show, first off, what's wrong with you? Second, if you've seen like Colbert or Kimmel or some of these places now, and you go in, it is a very relaxed atmosphere compared to Late Show. It was what you guys did. It was a well-oiled machine.
yeah.
It was, and they took the audience very, very seriously.
Yeah, it was, and everything was so, fine-tuned and coordinated from from the time you get booked, like until you show up and wait in line and actually get your ticket, and like the way we, because we had 470 people every day that we had to get in within,
Yep.
10 minutes.
Yep.
And so like telling people, like, every single person exactly where to go, when to clap, when to sit down, when to leave. Like, yeah, it's almost its own production in and of itself.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and like you say, fine tuned by that point. There's the Woody story. Any other ones that you that are go tos for you that you like to tell people about?
I do have one that I always tell people, and it actually has nothing to do with any guests or Dave or
Yeah,
anything.
yeah.
But there were a few times where we went to like Barcelona Bar or Three
Mhm.
Monkeys after a taping, and we were there way too late, and I didn't want to go back to Brooklyn, so I just went back to the Ed Sullivan Theater and slept on the floor there. And just woke up and got back to work.
Where in the theater itself, in the
Uh,
foyer?
no,
Where?
so the Pages had this little locker room.
Right,
There's
right.
like a guys and a girls locker room where we'd go. Yeah, we could keep our stuff during the day because we had to wear these polo shirts, or in
Hmm.
the winter we had these sweaters with the Late Show logo on them.
Hmm.
And we also have the jackets because it's really cold in the theater.
Yep.
And so I actually have my jacket here. Um, and so all the Pages had these jackets, these
Yep.
actual Letterman jackets.
Yep.
And so the few times I slept there, I piled a bunch of these on the floor and made a little bed.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It's actually kind of comfortable.
I love that story so much for a variety of reasons. Number one, that's just charming. It's charming that you would just, okay, yeah, just had a few too many, go back to the Ed Sullivan Theater. But then the idea that you would pile up a bunch of late show jackets, these items, these garments, that there are many fans, myself included. The night I talked to Dave and during the Q&A, I asked him about a jacket. Like we all, like, there's the people who become enthusiasts at this level all want a jacket, and the idea that you piled a bunch of them up so you could use them
Just
as a bed
on
is
this just dirty floor.
fantastic. Were there a lot of those things kicking? Because and it seemed like every time a guest asked, or every once in a while somebody from the audience asked, they always came up with one. Were there lots of them hanging around?
I'm not sure where they kept them. Like I really didn't see that many. Like all the employees had them just
Yeah.
because it was so cold in the theater.
Yeah.
But actually, we had to give them back when we left the show. It was like property of the show. But the one I have now is the one that Dave gave us for
The
Christmas.
Christmas gift. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Oh, that's
and it
crazy.
yeah, and it's mine has a little. They were different each year because
Number
mine
11.
has,
Yep.
yep, 11 for 2011.
Oh, that's great. And you were in the staff photo.
Yep. I still have my staff photo framed.
That's
It's in the bedroom.
fantastic. Oh, that's fantastic. I love hearing that. Um, Other highlights from the show, other the as we're okay, so what caused you to leave, but like what were some of the highlights? Obviously, it's not, people have talked about it, it's not exactly a career job in that regard. There are some people, of course, like Mike, who start there, and many and others as well, who started as interns that have moved up into different departments. Was that ever something that you wanted to do, or were other parts of television calling you, and that was where you sent your direction?
Yeah, I actually, when I first got the job, they told me it was only a year long.
Yep.
And so, I figured, all right, this will be a fun year and then I'll go find something else. But as I worked there, all I wanted to do was stay at that show.
Yeah.
So, I was looking at the job postings every day. Like I was talking to as many people as I could.
Hmm.
Like I really wanted to stay. And I wasn't able to find anything, but shortly after, probably like a few months after I left,
Hmm.
and I did stay the full year. A lot of
Hmm.
pages will, find a full-time job, and just kind
Yeah.
of bail
That's
early.
why
But
there's turnover in that department. And if you get lucky, you can kind of get placed in there. Yeah.
yeah,
Because people,
exactly.
yep, yep.
Yep. So yeah, I stayed the full year and then I left because they gave me the boot. They were like, "You've been here too long." But yeah, a few months later, I did see an opening, and I think it was like the mailroom or something.
Yep.
It wasn't too glamorous, but I just wanted to stay at that show. And so I emailed Janice.
Yep.
I was like, "Hey, Janice, any way I could interview for this?" And like, she's the nicest person in the
She's
world.
amazing. Yep.
Yeah, and she definitely like took my resume and showed it to whoever was in charge of that department. And I didn't get the job, but I did. I met so many people that that I still talk to today, and I did go on to work on quite a few other shows like that year in the fall of 2012,
Yeah.
which was so I left in April or May, and then September of 2012, I got a clearance job on season 13 of Celebrity Apprentice with Donald Trump.
A clearance job.
Yeah, so
Let's talk about that. What's a clearance job and how does
yeah,
it work on
so
that show?
uh, basically my like I think like most reality shows have a clearance department.
Yep.
You basically have to make sure everyone that appears on camera signs a release form.
Yep.
So if we're out in public, shooting a scene, and one of the cast members decides to talk to just a random person walking by, well, we'll let them film it, do their thing, and then after the camera's cut, we have to chase that person down and convince them to sign this form so we can legally show their face on TV on
Yeah.
NBC.
I've talked to
And
people who did it for Letterman and it's okay. Not exactly the easiest job sometimes. And I mean, and
oh,
The Apprentice itself, and I mean, obviously, Donald Trump, not as back then, not nearly as polarizing as he is now. However, still also back then, it still is Donald Trump.
yeah.
That must have been a very interesting scenario doing that.
Yeah, it was really funny. And the season I worked on had a great cast. We had Dennis Rodman and Lil Jon. My favorite was Gary Busey. Like it was yeah, it was quite the cast of characters. And then
uh,
you throw Donald Trump in there.
Did you have a lot of people who did almost safe to say that most of the people would sign the release no problem, or was it 50-50, or did you ever run into to people who wouldn't?
Yeah, I would say, at least 90% of people were willing to do it because they wanted to be on TV.
Yep.
But we did have a few people who refused. And so in that case, I guess we just, they either didn't use that specific piece of the show or they would blur out their face or something. But m most of the time, people were just, it was like tourists who were
Sure.
really excited to see themselves on NBC.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you worked for celebrity. Okay, so I always would ask, of course, any encounters with Dave, but let's go. Let's do the other D. Any encounters with Don?
Ah, I never actually talked to the guy.
Yep.
There's one day where he walked by me and and just kind of like glanced over and said, "Hey, how you doing?" But
Yeah.
that was about it.
Yeah. Um, that must have been a very interesting production to be on.
Yeah, very, very interesting.
What else? What else did you? Your foray into TV. What else did you do?
So I worked on a Food Network show. I did a couple day play jobs. Like
Yeah.
one of the more interesting ones was right after the hurricane wiped out the Jersey Shore.
Yep.
I did a thing at MTV at the Viacom building, and it was a was it a telethon or a thing where people call in and
Yep.
not a telethon, but it
Like
was
a
like
fundraiser. Like a
yeah,
fundraiser
like a
thing. Yep. Yep.
fundraiser.
Yep.
And so the entire Jersey Shore cast was there taking phone calls and trying. It was called Restore the Shore. They're raising money to clean up the Jersey Shore after after Hurricane Sandy. And so yeah, I got to meet the whole Jersey Shore cast, which was uh they were much more calm than I would have expected them to be. Like they were all actually just really nice, like pretty normal people.
Until the red light goes on and then they turn it up to 11.
Exactly.
That reminds me of my boy Rick Sheckman, Shecky dressed as Snooky. We can look up that clip. That's great. Just it made me think about that. Miss you, Rick. So any Dave encounters while you were there? I mean, like obviously there's the post where you can see Dave running up and down the stairs and getting ready and things like that. There's obviously that. So you would have seen that a few times, I assume.
Yeah, actually, that was the fun part of being down on that platform where
Yep.
I saw Ryan Reynolds because yeah, right before the show, Dave would sprint down that hallway, and he'd go and like usually he would look over and just be like, how you doing?
Yep.
Or good afternoon. And so yeah, you did get to very briefly for about one
Mhm.
second see him if you were down on the platform.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, or he would say, "Hey, little buddy," or something like. But and then at the Christmas party, I just very briefly said hi to him. He was just kind of walking around, just saying a quick hi, making his presence known, but never actually got to have a real conversation with
No,
him.
no. And again, most would say that is, you got more than some of the writers who wrote there for a long time. God,
Yeah,
seeing him that
that's
way,
true.
it's just,
Yeah.
it's funny. It's a family and it's a collection of people who, work together every day, but there is very much, and I think it gets overblown sometimes, like don't make eye contact and all of that kind of stuff. It wasn't like that,
Yeah.
but it was just, you know what? It's the time that's so important. Time is really, really precious. What you guys did every single night, the breakneck speed, and two shows on Thursday, like it's so much that you don't have time to kind of sit down and have conversations when it comes to there's a lot of stuff to get done.
Yeah, exactly. It's Yeah, it was wild. Oh, I just thought of another
Yeah.
funny story. One time it was like probably like 30 minutes before the show. We're getting the audience all situated, ready to do the speech, and Conan O'Brien walked by outside, just strolling down the sidewalk, and he looked over and he said, "Say hi to Dave for me."
Oh my God.
And and we all kind of did a double take. We're like, Was that Conan?"
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it was so cool. And then just in 2013, like a year and a half ago,
Yep.
I I was walking by the NBC studios by Rockefeller Center, just going. I think I was watching some football with some friends at a bar, and I was walking to the subway to come back home, and I walked right by Conan, just standing on the sidewalk looking at his phone, and he was standing next to one other guy, and they were both on their phones. But I did a double take. I was like, "That's definitely Conan." So I turned around and went back and asked him if he'd take a picture with me, and he was so nice. He was like, "Yeah, man, let's do it." And I brought that up. I was like, "Remember?" Like obviously he doesn't remember. I was like, "Remember back in 2012 when you
Yeah.
told us to say hi to Dave? I never got the chance to do that."
And this is a year and a half ago, like 2023, you saw Conan and you brought it up to him?
Yeah,
I would
just
have too. I totally would
yeah,
have too.
had to.
That's fantastic. And he had no memory of the moment.
Nah, he just kind of laughed and
Oh,
was.
that's so great. Oh, that's fantastic. You got a chance to meet Conan too. That's very, very cool.
Yeah,
Um, Bittersweet leaving the place though. I can imagine. That must have been
yeah,
so
definitely.
much so that you tried to get back on again, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Man, I it's so funny, you were there for a year and
Mhm.
yet there are a lot of people out there who would give anything to trade places with you and see some of these things and whatnot. It feels like that and you're incredibly, I can feel the gratefulness through the camera here that you just loved
Yeah,
it so much. Uh,
definitely. And even that one year seemed like so much longer. I feel like I worked there for 3, 4 years because there's so much packed into every day.
yeah.
See all these stars and amazing bands every day. Like it doesn't even seem like it was only a year.
Any other specific moments from the show, guests who might have been there, moments that happened on stage that you got to witness, eyewitness that are still, they've solidified in the cement? Anything there that
Um, there was one time Justin Bieber was there,
yeah.
and I was working in the balcony, so
Uh-huh.
I was like way up in the top left corner of the theater, and I could barely hear like the actual show because there were so many girls outside screaming.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, so many fans, like just the entire taping. They were out there just because they knew Justin Bieber was on the other side of that wall.
And they wouldn't stop screaming the whole show, even though they couldn't see
Yeah,
anything. They didn't know. They just felt his presence on the stage and just
yeah,
kept on.
just waiting for him to come outside. And then he tried to. That was, I guess, around that time he was trying to become a rapper, or he did I don't know,
Okay.
like freestyle or something.
Yep.
And Dave kind of put him on the spot and was like, "Let's hear something." And it was just awful.
I don't know if
So
this is the same one or not, but there was one of Bieber's later appearances, in the later the twilight years of Late Show when Justin came on and he had just gotten a tattoo on his forearm and Dave gave him a snake bite. Like he totally went in there and grabbed it and started twisting. I remember watching it home cheering. It was just so funny to see him do that. That
it's
is that's crazy that you were there for one of those moments. That's yeah, that's very 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 cool.
uh, I
What do you? Oh, go ahead,
Oh yeah,
please.
I was just gonna say I also always loved when Regis Philbin would come on because he was like half the time I don't think it was even planned. Like
Yep,
Regis would show up and like do a quick bit with Dave and then leave.
yep.
And he would walk through the lobby and like Regis was just the sweetest guy. He would say hi to everyone and like yeah, it was so much fun just randomly seeing Regis pop in.
Yeah, well, those of us again who love the show, the idea that you have that in your memory banks again, another one of those very I keep using the word vicarious probably because I just am so silly I don't have enough vocabulary, but again that's what we all wanted to be a part of. We all wanted to have a beer with Pat Farmer or to see Regis kicking around the halls or
Yeah.
whatever it is, and you got a chance to see that and be a part of that. Um, did you ever have the aspirations to be in front of the camera? Like listening to you and Eric, you're so natural. Talking, going back and forth with him on the show. Clearly, you've got the performer in you with the musical ability as well. Is this something like? Do you enjoy podcasting? Do you enjoy doing this?
Yeah, it's so much fun. I love podcasting. I love playing. Like I play at the monthly comedy show that Eric produces. So
The
the last,
live snakes?
yep, Live Snakes. So I play. I'm kind of the Paul Schaefer of that show. I
Yep.
sit off to the side and play guitar riffs as each comedian is walking up to the stage.
Yep.
And yeah, and I've always loved the camera. Like, um, I've Eric and I also have done a few things on the Manhattan Public Access channel. We did this one show. This was Eric's idea.
Yep.
It was called Beatboxing with Greg, and it was like a
Uh-huh.
purposefully really cheesy talk show setup where I would just sit there with a guest and it was a 30-minute show and I would say, "Welcome to Beatboxing with Greg. I'm Greg. Let's get started." And I just beatboxed for 30 minutes straight. And that was the show.
That is not easy to do.
No, my mouth was so dry.
How many episodes of that did you shoot?
We did a couple of them.
Oh my God.
We did one in Times Square, where I would walk up to tourists and pretend I was going to interview them, and then I would just start beatboxing for as long as they put up with it, just until they walked away.
Oh, and again, that's very much a Letterman-esque
Yeah.
type bit. That is really funny. Do you have some game beatboxing or is that part of the thing? Like,
No,
are you good at it?
no, I'm actually not. Which which made it even more ridiculous.
Fantastic. For a half hour. Like I've been part of local television in my neck of the woods as well, public access type stuff. And 30 minutes is a long time. Like
Yeah,
that is a
it's
that is a long time to fill. What a phenomenal gag that is. That's like again Andy Kaufman-esque
oh,
um,
definitely, definitely.
performance art, and I get that vibe from Eric too. I get that vibe from him for sure that he likes that performance art aspect of
Yeah.
these things too. Right? A little bit off the beaten path, right?
Yep, exactly, exactly. Just yeah, I like doing things, other than just stand-up comedy or playing music, just
Hmm.
things, a little more out of the box.
That being said, it sounds like you guys got a pretty good gig going with Live Snakes. It sounds like it's going well. You're getting lots of people come out to the shows. You got lots of performers who come on there, and that's which part is it? No, it's not Connecticut. You guys are in what part of New
New
York are
York.
you in?
It's in Williamsburg in Brooklyn.
Williamsburg. That's right. That's in
Yep.
Williamsburg, New York. That's where you guys do it. Okay, that's cool. And Talking Schmidt, you guys, you and Eric for the most part weekly.
Yeah, yep. We've been doing it for about 3.5 years now. We started the summer of 2021.
Yep.
So yeah, we've been pumping out a new episode every Thursday, and
What's
it's a lot of
What's your
fun.
preparation? It's like you guys get together. It's two friends catching up is really what it comes down to. And do you have like for example, okay, you went to the DMV. All right, that's something we'll talk about. Like, are you always going in there saying, okay, I got three things that I'm going to bring up and go from there, or do you just kind of let loose?
Yeah, it's we have like a rough outline. Usually we'll just, like the day of, we'll just text each other, see if we have any weird New York stories that happened to us over the past week, or if there's anything that sticks out in the news, like
Yeah.
we'll jot a few things down and just kind of, have a rough outline and that. But for the most part, it's just kind of off the cuff.
It's very good stuff. I love it a
Oh,
lot. Um, I have a couple of things that one of the things that I've been told is that you've got into a lot of concerts for free. You have figured out ways to get into concerts for free.
yes, it's
Can
one
you
of my
tell me how to do it? Because concerts are one of my favorite things in the world. How do you do you have a secret or are you willing to share it with me? How has that happened that you've gotten
absolutely.
into and what are some of the highlight concerts that we're talking about here?
So yeah, it's a little different depending on the show and the venue.
Yeah.
I used to, when I lived in Minneapolis, I went to Warp Tour every
Yeah.
summer to see all my pop
Your
punk
punk
band.
bands. Yep, yep.
Yeah. And I had a few different schemes with that one. One time I brought a really cheap empty guitar case, which
Yeah.
which I didn't care if I lost it. And
I have
but I
friends who have done this exact same. Yes. Okay. Keep
yes.
going. Yep.
Yep, and you just walk in the band entrance with a guitar case and nobody asks questions.
Yep.
There's another time I didn't have a guitar case with me, so I still walked in the band entrance and just pretended I was on my phone and that I was just very angry and I had somewhere to be. And no, I just marched in there and I was like, I know we start in 15 minutes. I'm on my way in right now. Just pretending that I was in a band and nobody asked questions. And there's my favorite one was uh this would have been I want to say like 2015 or so, probably about 10 years ago.
Yep.
Outcast was playing a private show. I think it was some kind of marketing like industry
Yep.
event,
Yep.
and I really wanted to go, but not only was it sold out, like you couldn't even get tickets because
Yeah.
it was a private event.
Private event.
Yeah, and I figured I'm just gonna go work my magic, see if I can sneak into this thing. And so I showed up and I just beelined for the first person I saw that was holding a clipboard and had a little headset on. And I found the busiest person
Yeah.
because I wanted to make sure they were flustered.
Yeah.
And so there were a bunch of people trying to like give them their name, and they were flipping through pages trying to mark these people off the list. And they told me I wasn't on the list, and I gave them my real name
Yeah.
because that wasn't I wasn't trying to like actually be on the list. I
Right.
was just trying to distract them. So as they were like trying to find my name and there were other people crowded around trying to get in, I just snuck right behind them and through the door. And I got into the show, which was cool enough.
Yeah.
But then I made my way up to the side of the stage, like right in right in front and off to the side, and just started making small talk with some guy who, assumed I was supposed to be there.
Yep.
And he was part of Big Boy's entourage.
Oh my God.
And so I hung out with him the whole show. And then right when it ended and everyone was leaving, I became friends with this guy over the course of an hour or so. He's like, "Hey man, you wanna pop backstage?"
Sure.
So,
Of course I
yeah,
do.
sure. I just went back there, and I didn't meet Andre 3000, but Big Boy is back there hanging out. And so I went from not even, I wasn't even supposed to be there in the first place to just hanging out in the green room with Outcast.
You and I are brothers from another mother. I have many stories that are exactly along that vein, and
That's
I
amazing.
love it so much. My best friend Mike, he has a phrase for me as to how we do this. I one of the bands that another band that is like on our very tippy top list is Faith No More. I'm a huge Faith No More fan,
Oh yeah.
and yeah, and so the last time we saw them in 2015, um, I did the exact same thing. And the security guy who I was having the interaction with, convincing that we were supposed to be back and hanging with the band, he goes, "Well, what are you guys doing?" I said, "This is what we do." And so my friend Mike, that's exactly what he said. Every time something like this happens with us, he's like, "This is what we do," and that's just you just you
It's
just
so good.
it's so much fun.
Yeah.
And I
You also get
know
such
that
an
it came from
adrenaline
Letterman.
rush.
I
Yeah,
came from
yeah.
Letterman. That attitude came from Letterman. The idea of being somewhere where you're not supposed to be, that spirit of that, a little bit of mischief, but
Mhm.
no malice whatsoever. It's
No, as
just
long as you're just confident and you
yes,
act like you're supposed to be there,
yes,
that's that because yeah. I think most security guards can weed out people who, are looking over their shoulder and they know they're not supposed to be there. But yeah, if you just act like you're supposed to be there, a lot of times they don't even ask questions.
yeah. And it's funny, like bringing it back to the Letterman, the whole Letterman of it all. I know that spirit was put into me because of that show. And it's like part of the reason I think part of the reason that I host this show is a little bit of that. Like okay, what, like nobody's doing it, why not? Yeah, of course I'm supposed to be here. And then of course Shecky helped with that and all that, but still like why not, right? You only live once, and what's the worst that can happen? You get turned away. I've gotten turned away, but more often
Yeah,
than
sure.
not, I've not gotten turned away, and it's led to some sort of story that and we're talking about it to this day.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's so cool. I very rarely meet other people like you who do these things. So that's amazing.
the other one who does that too is a guy by the name of Mark Malkoff. He was the host of the Carson podcast. He's the host of Inside Late Night, and he's the same thing. He has gotten his way into so many amazing situations because of just that spirit of, again, mischief, no malice, and let's just see how far I can get. And you'd be surprised how far you can get if you just put a
Yeah.
little bit of willpower and thought and confidence, like you said, into it. You
Yep,
act like you're
exactly.
supposed to be there, and that's how
Yes.
I'm hoping that in 4 or 5 months here, or 8 months, I guess it is now. I think about it. Wish it was sooner. I'll have a story about Trent Reznor again because I've met
Yeah.
him 3 times already using this exact same kind of formula. I'm pretty certain I'm going to meet him again, and
Yeah.
it's all through this. It's not through being connected. It's just the will and the happy spirit to do so. So,
Yeah, just
um,
believe that it's going to happen. I
yeah,
actually I had another really funny one where I didn't even need to talk to any security guards. It was when I was in Minneapolis, the Foo Fighters were playing at the XL Energy Center,
yep,
and I I don't think it was sold out, but I was very broke back then.
yeah,
And so I showed up with, with my no real plan other than I'm gonna walk in and be confident.
yep,
But the all of the main entrances were pretty well guarded.
yeah,
So I just started walking around the stadium and I found an open loading dock. And
yep,
I had no idea where it led to. And I just wandered back into this dark alley. And there was a semi truck like unloading some stuff. And I pretended I was on my phone again
yeah,
and just kind of found a staircase that I walked up. And a door that was up probably 3 or 4 stairwells was open. And I walked in that door and again, it was just like this empty hallway, and I was looking around. I was like, I have no idea if I'm even in the XL Center. And then some guy opens a door, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, oh, I was looking for the bathroom. And he was like, oh, it's not down here. Let me show you where it is. And he brought me in to the arena.
Yep.
And then I was just in the Foo Fighters
Now
show.
you're in, and that's it. And it's Foo Fighters, one of Dave's favorite bands, which is
Yep,
so
exactly.
cool.
Yeah, I love
Um,
that they played that final show.
yeah, I got my goal is to get them all on the show, and I've got a thing that we're gonna start at some point this year. Hopefully, if I've got enough RAM that I can allocate towards doing it. Which Foo will be first? My goal is to have them all because I mean they all have so many experiences there. I mean they did 2 top 10 lists. They've been on the show. Never mind the very last. We're 10 years. We're getting close to 10 years from
Yeah.
that magical night where they did that amazing montage to live music, which
Oh,
is
that was
just
so good. That
bonkers.
montage gave me chills. It was so
Absolutely.
good.
Absolutely. And we're going to be giving that montage some love over the next coming months here as we approach May 20th, which is the 10-year anniversary of that. But yeah, the Foo Fighters are absolutely there. They are connected to the show in so many ways. I've seen them live a bunch of times. And I mean, yeah, to me, they all are, and many other bands too would attach, but none probably bigger than the Foo Fighters.
Oh,
Oh, go ahead. Yes,
I was
please.
this I can't believe I forgot to mention this earlier. As we were talking about the Foo Fighters, there
Yeah.
was the day they played on the show when I was
Yep.
working there.
Yep.
There was another live on Letterman I saw,
Mhm.
and right after the show, right after they played, Dave Grohl walked down. Like most of the audience had left.
Yep.
Dave hopped off the stage, and I tried to take a selfie with him, and I'll have to send it to you.
Oh,
And
please do. Oh, I think we
yeah,
just found what your thumbnail for the episode's going to be. Please send me that
yeah,
thumbnail.
it's perfect.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah, I call it my failed Dave Grohl selfie. I was like, Dave, can I get a picture quick? And he leaned in, and this was 2011 or
Yep.
2012, and cell phone cameras weren't that great.
Nope.
Right as I was about to take the picture, somebody called his name. They're like, Dave. And he looked over. And so it's just me with this huge grin on my face because I'm so excited. And the side of Dave Grohl's face. And he just walked away. And
Awesome.
yeah,
So great. That's going to be the thumbnail of this episode. Please send it
yeah,
to me right
perfect.
after.
Yeah.
It's been so much fun having you here, Greg. And I mean, Eric and I have been talking and stuff. The next time I'm in New York, I'm gonna come out and see a show first and foremost, one of your guys' show, and I want to
Yeah,
hang
that'd
out
be awesome.
and have a. Oh, where did chowder come from? I don't know why he calls it chowder. When it comes, I'm gonna have some chowder with you guys. I think that would be a
Yes,
lot of fun.
yeah, couple beers, couple chowders.
Couple chowders.
It really doesn't mean anything.
It's so
I think
great.
Eric just said it, and then we went with it.
Oh yeah, no, and your show, the Talking Schmidt, has so many of those little things in it that after 2 or 3 episodes, you're like, okay, and you're
It's like
becoming
a
part of
running.
it, right? You're hearing
Yeah.
of it. So I definitely want to hang out with you guys. I'm gonna finish the show here with you today, unless you think of anything else that you want to talk about. But here's we have one sponsor at the Letterman Podcast and one sponsor only, and that is it was Rupert G and the Hello Deli. Well, now Rupert's of course sold the deli, but Hello Dash Deli still exists. He's still got the site. He's still selling official Late Show with David Letterman merchandise.
Oh,
That
that's
was a
so
gift that
cool.
Dave gave to him on the way out, was that he could still sell the shirts and the mugs and all that stuff. And we love Rupert very, very much. He's a good friend of the show, obviously. So please go to Hello Dash Deli. Also, they've got hello-deli.com, I should say. Also, the official Letterman channel has some merch as well. You can get Barbara Gaines show t-shirts, which is so great. I'm going to get one and I'll wear it on this show from time to time. But any Rupert stories of any sort, like, I mean, again, people who they work for the Ed Sullivan Theater, they're work. Oh my God! And then they get to see Rupert every day or and whatnot. The calming force, that person who was he was the psychologist, he was the counselor, he was the friend, he was the son, he was the brother, whatever it was for that production. He was very much a family member of that production. Any Rupert stories or Hello Deli stories?
Yeah, I don't have any like any wild stories, but yeah, I just remember going into the Hello Deli, and he's just such a nice, down to earth guy.
Yeah.
Like he's so calm.
Yep.
I would get excited to see him. I'd be like, Rupert, and he's just like, hey, how you doing? Just like very low key guy.
Yep.
But yeah, he's just the nicest guy. And I mean, I would pop in there just to say hi to him. Like I don't even know if I ever bought anything from the deli. Just be like, hey, Rupert.
Yeah, he and May are incredible people. Greg, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come on the Letterman podcast. I appreciate it very, very much. And I'll say our goodbye privately, but thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This is a lot of fun.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, I'll do a quick outro and then we'll take it from there. You know what? I'll just do it right here. This is why we do the show. We love celebrating what we call the greatest body of broadcast work in history, that of David Letterman and Company. This is the show where the company is just as important as the star. I just love going down memory lane talking about this stuff. So this has been another episode of the Letterman Podcast with Mike Chisholm. Coincidentally, I am Mike Chisholm. Thank you and good night.
Overcoat and underpants.